Well, welcome back. We're right in the middle of an exciting portion. And if you didn't hear last week, you really need to go back and hear the last 2 weeks rather, to get into the Sermon on the Mount. All right? They're shorter lessons. We dropped them from 45 to 50 minutes over a year ago, back down to around 35, so that they'd be easier and quicker for you to access, listen to, and perhaps go back and review. So we want to make this easy for you. We also invite you to join us on Mondays for our Who Told You That or Who Told You About series and our Sunday worships. Now, the Sunday worships, you can listen to all of it. You can listen to just the sermon. And in fact, later, a week or two after, just the sermon is posted. And then we also have a podcast so that if you don't want the video, you just want the audio, the podcast is there. And everything we do is free because people who can give us money to let us eat and to buy a Bible and to talk to you. So that's just amazing and wonderful. We are in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 20. Here is a real whip crack turnaround because he's been saying that he hadn't come to abolish the law. He wants every little mark of it, that jot or tittle we talked about last week, that every single part of it must remain until it is completely fulfilled, and that if we fail in even the small commandments, we'll be least in the kingdom of heaven. If we do the commandments, we will be greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And we're all nodding along going, okay, heavy burden here, but okay. And then he says something which would have caused audible gasp in the crowd. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you certainly will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Oh my goodness. Hang on. The Pharisees made everything a law. The way you washed your hands, you had to bind phylacteries or little boxes, containers. Sometimes it was a box, most of the time. Other times it was a leather wrap in which scriptures were written, and then scriptures were written on the outside, and then a box on your head doing that as well, and rules about your hair, your garments. Rule everything. And they were open, aggressive, and ostentatious in the way they kept the law. And then you have the teachers of the law, the scribes who know everything, and they're telling you about everything. And Jesus is going, oh, you're going to have to be a whole lot better than them. People would have been going, how? We can't even do that. But which, by the way, Jesus will talk about in Matthew later, when he says, oh, they'll go through heaven and earth to get one more convert, only to make him twice the child of the devil as they are. So we're confused here. What's going on? Well, remember, he was talking about being a part of the kingdom of heaven. That's that whole from verse 17 forward, but really it's the whole Sermon on the Mount. Kingdom of heaven is here, now. Do I believe that we go to a place called heaven after we die? Yes, because that's part of the kingdom too. But we don't hold off and just check boxes until we get there. We're supposed to be ambassadors of Christ, making every place we enter the kingdom of heaven to the best of our ability, even if it costs us our life. And so, and by the way, we don't do that with swords. No crusaders. We do that with love and speaking the truth in love. And we do it by serving people in love, even when we can't use our words. So that's who we're supposed to be. So he says, be the kingdom of heaven, but the rigid keeping of law, forms, procedures, doing the traditions, he says that's not the kingdom of heaven. He says, unless you do better than them, you're not really part of the kingdom of heaven. Oh my goodness. So God isn't looking for the forms? Well, if you read your Old Testament, you'll see that there are times he says, I've had it with your sacrifices. I don't like your sacrifices. They stink and I can't look at them. And I'm going, wait a minute. You're the one that told him to do it. Hey God, have you read Leviticus and Deuteronomy? You go into quite a lot of detail about the sacrifices there. He was saying they're doing the outside when it's supposed to come from the inside, and their inside is not a wellspring of love and joy. The inside is what God's interested in. In fact, Jesus is going to prove that to you in a series of highly shocking statements starting now. You thought you were shocked by the persecution comments in 11 and 12. Oh no, wait till you see this. You've heard it said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. Those of you who aren't real Bible people that didn't grow up learning all the stuff, I get it, and we are so happy you're part of us because we're right there with you. We're focused on Jesus, but we want to explain some things to you. Some people have had real problems because they've grown up King James or one of the other versions that in the commandments it goes, thou shalt not kill. And then within a few chapters, they have laws about you got to kill a guy if he does this. And you got to kill a guy if he does this, rape and murder and the like. And you're going, wait a minute, which is it? And I've heard, modern day pacifists even say, God tells us, thou shalt not kill. Actually, he never did. The word there, the phrase is lo tishma, do no murder. And murder is different than killing. In every language and in every legal code, murder is different than killing. If, for example, an example used in the scripture, if I'm out chopping wood, and somebody else is out chopping wood, and I rear back, and the head of my axe flies off, hits a guy and kills him, it's not murder. I've not sinned. It's an accident. If somebody, and this may be controversial to some of you, and if you want me to do Monday morning messages on it, I will. If somebody comes into your house and begins attacking your children with a baseball bat, and you fight them, and in the fight they die, that is not murder. That's killing, legal, justified self-defense, or the defense of family and others. Legal codes, if you're in a fair justice system, always look upon that as justified homicide. It is not considered a murder. Murder is to kill somebody out of anger or for personal animus or for personal gain. And so we look at that. Or from a complete disregard for human life, such as getting drunk and driving down the road at 100 miles an hour. Those are murders. And we don't do that. So Jesus, when he says do not murder, is actually correctly translating what the command said. Does that help? I hope it does. By the way, you and I can then talk about self-defense, war, the owning or bearing of arms. We can talk about that another time. I just want to clear that one up. But I tell you, all right, stop right there. Who are you to look at us and say, God said to Moses on top of the mountain, and he brought it down on those big rocks, do not murder. But I say, do you think that got the attention of the crowd? Especially right after he told them that the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, that all their stuff was outside external tradition, law keeping, and didn't please God at all and wasn't part of the kingdom of heaven. And now he's saying, no, I'm going to keep the law. I'm not going to let it pass away. But I say to you, that's kind of a whiplash thing in people's brains going, what? If someone who is angry, anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. By the way, the word there is brother, adelphos. However, the rules of language of that time meant that word covered women too. That is why the NIV, especially after 2011, adds and sister. It is not doing it because it has this agenda to turn you egalitarian, but not complementarian. If you don't know what those words are, don't worry. They're not important now. They don't have a hidden agenda. The translators of the NIV, in fact, were very, very open about the fact that they believed that the Bible is the inerrant word of God. And whether or not you agree with that, that's where they are. So they're treating the Bible with kid gloves and trying to do it as accurately as possible, which means it is entirely appropriate to add to adelphos, brothers and sister, okay? So he's saying if you're angry with them you'll be subject to judgment. Again, and the word again in the way he uses it means furthermore. Anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, oh, that is so hard to translate. It really is. King James did not help us here, although seriously, it was the best they could do at the time with the manuscripts they had. Remarkable job they did, frankly. They'll say, calls your brother or sister, thou fool. I'm going, as a boy, I'm listening to this going, I got 3 older sisters. I've called them worse than they've called me worse. What do we do now? He goes, you are answerable to court. And anyone who says you fool will be in danger of the fire of hell. What's going on here? Deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. He's talking to a closed community, the Jews, who had been a closed community, closed by meaning separate, distinct. You could enter, you could become a Jew, a proselyte, but they didn't seek that. And so those who came of their own accord, won over by the behavior, perhaps, or by the evidence of a God leading these people. These people knew the same scriptures, knew the same songs, used the same expressions. They got it. And he's saying, if you just say, well, I haven't murdered anybody, don't expect God to go, oh, that's great. That's great, honey. Well done not murdering today. No, that's not. No, you missed the point here, I'm afraid. He didn't want you just to refrain from murder. He wants you to refrain from anger, from belittling somebody. Raka is a form of contempt. Today, it might be any one of a number of curse words which I will not use, that are used to belittle somebody. There are words we know in the English language that are used to belittle people of color. Others that are used to belittle women. There are those to belittle men. We don't use those words. We may not be able to help from thinking those words from time to time. But as the Chinese proverb says, we cannot stop birds from flying over our head, but we can stop them from building a nest in our hair. So we might think them, but we have to cleanse that thought and make sure it doesn't come out of here. Because eventually what's in here comes out. We got to work on cleansing the thought. And then, thou fool, the best I can tell you, and there's just not a direct translation here, the best I can tell you is, if you say to someone, you are bound for hell and you deserve it. You are not deserving of the love or the mercy of Christ. You are not a human being. God says, you're going to need to be refined in fire, because that's what hell is. The word here really refers to the grave and the pain and loss of the grave. He's saying, don't cut off people like this. Don't think of them like this. Don't treat them like this. God, in other words, wants more than external. A debt and murder? No. Neither does he want you to plop something down. I'll serve him. Have your tea and I hope you choke on it. No. We are to refine our thoughts and our behavior well before it gets to the murder stage. Right? Oh, but he's not done. Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them, and then come offer your gift. So, it's on you. You've decided to come and to worship God. Good, that's a good thing. We like that. But then you realize, I hurt this brother or that sister, or I cheated them out of some money, or I cheated them out of their spouse, or I cheated them out of, I need to go make that right. He says, leave your gift, because giving is important. Giving is an act of worship. that really reshapes us more into the image of God, who is the great giver of all good gifts. Leave the gift. Go be reconciled. Then come back and worship. He wants you to come to God being able to say, I did my best. I tried to reconcile, or I did reconcile. By the way, it's not always up to you. You can want to reconcile all you want to. Reconciliation requires agreement on the other side. Just as the writer of Hebrews would say, if it lies within you, and as much as it lies within you, and if it is possible, live in peace with all men. Okay? So again, don't put an impossible burden on you, but there is a burden. Then settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taking you to court. Do it while you're still together on the way. Or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. And truly I tell you, you'll not get out till you've paid every last penny. He's saying, make it as good as possible. Negotiate. Somebody, and we're just going to use money here. You know, you owe me $50,000, and you're going, I don't have that. I don't think I owe you that, but I can give you $5,000. Well, there's a bit of air there. And so you negotiate back and forth on your way to the court until you get a settlement. Don't let somebody else set the prison sentence for you. You may not be able to take it. So we negotiate. One of the things I do when I write emails, not every email by any stretch, but a lot of emails when I write them, especially since we are a people that are scattered literally all over the world, is I will ask them, how can we love you better? Because we try. This is well over 700 videos we put out in 3 years. That's a lot of material. If these were all transcribed into books, it would be about 60 books worth of material. Do the math. And yet we make it free. And we try to make it personal. And we try to make it real and honest. And then, of course, if you let us know where you live, if you've sent in an email to info@oursafeharbor.com and said, you know, I want you to know I'm here and I live in, you know, Wichita, or I live in Melbourne, Florida, or I live in, you know, Melbourne, Australia. That's huge. I can come see you. But we also want to say, what else can we do to let you feel our love? What else can we do to help you feel the love of God? We want to be able to do more. And so we negotiate what can be done. You know, if you live, for example, in a South Pacific island, you know, Vanuatu, or, you know, one of the Fiji, somewhere like that, and you're the only one there, it's going to be hard for me to get to you because we survive on donations, and that's a lot of donations to get out there and back. Although, frankly, I'd love to go. So if you've got a few, and I bet the team would love to go as well. You know, I don't see that happening, but hey, it's a wonderful thought. Let us know, and we'll try to get to you. For example, I'm not kidding. We will go. This is being listened to, if you're listening when we post it, in the middle of May. But I'm going to be in Africa most of June. Why? We have a lot of people watching in Tanzania and surrounding nations. And a lot of them want to hear more. And in fact, they've rented a conference center. I just found that out recently. So I'll be going all day long. I'll be out there for a little bit over 2 weeks. They've also said they've been showing the videos to the Maasai tribe, and the Maasai have asked me to come preach to them. So we're serious about getting to you. And if there are enough of you there, we will gather up all the pennies we can and get to you. It's a promise. As long as God gives us the pennies and the health, we'll go. All right? So that said, we have to negotiate sometimes and say, I don't think we can get there. One church in the northwest of the United States actually sent me back with more money than it cost for me to go out there. That was amazing. In fact, a couple of times I've been able to come back and hand the church more money than it cost them to send me, which is brilliant. Only a couple of times, because we know most of you don't have that kind of money, and we're not asking for it. Don't hurt yourself for us. That's not what we go for. just saying sometimes we have to negotiate, and it's amazing how generous people are, frankly. Well, he's about to get us again. You ready? Oh, here we go. Again, you've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. All right, everybody there is going, and this is changing? Some people probably a little happy in their heart, but a whole lot of people very upset. Do you know that there was a Bible once called the Evil Bible or the Devil's Bible? And because of a mistake. Back then, to set type for a book, you had to go to a drawer, and every letter was carved upon a separate little stick. And later on, metal. You'd pick it up, and you'd put it in a tray, upside down and backwards. Because whenever it came up and printed, that way it'd be right side up and forwards. So setting type was a real skill set. I've done it. My dad used to have an old-fashioned printing press, and I would sit with trays of type and do entire pages that way and learned how to do it. And he had probably 60, 70 different trays of types. So they were different sizes or different fonts, we'd call them today. Well, setting the type, printing the Bible, somebody missed something. And as far as I know, it was the only big mistake in their print edition. But the Ten Commandments read, thou shalt commit adultery. Well, the people who printed that were fined by the king and jailed and ruined. But that's a known thing. And in fact, if you go to some museums, they'll show you a copy of it. But he said, you've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Okay. Now, we need to talk about some things here. The word adultery is much bigger than sex. In the Bible, fornication is the word used for sexual sin. And it is all sexual sin. In American and Western legal law, British common law, you will find that fornication is usually used for sex between two people who are not married. Adultery is used for sex between two people who are married but not to each other. That is not the way the words were used in the time of Christ. And it was not the way they would be used for many, many, many hundreds of years. To them, adultery was the breaking of covenant. And generally speaking, that the illustrations we get refer to the covenant between a man and a woman, husband and wife. And that would involve sex in some form. It's not the only way one committed adultery. One committed adultery by desertion, by beating the wife, by breaking the covenant in any way. That was adultery. In fact, Jesus reminded them, hey, it was God who told Moses, give the woman the right of divorce and give her a writ so that she can prove she is free and clear of this fella. There were times marriages had to end because of adultery, the breaking of covenant. We'll talk more about that as we get to Jesus talking about marriage and divorce and remarriage. We're going to talk about that really soon, in fact. So hang in there. I had a very strange couple, a real problem, come into my office years and years ago, back when I ran a counseling service. I do not run one now because I can't. So if somebody reaches out to me for counseling, I refer to others. My schedule just won't allow me to do it. But at this time, that's what I did. And I would never give away any identifying marks, even though this was a good 30 years ago. So you're unlikely to ever be able to put any of this together. But this was a man and woman who had been married for decades, but had had sexual relations rather unsuccessfully twice because she refused. Now, she had come to me because she knew, and brought her husband, because she knew that we took the Bible seriously. Therefore, she thought she had to get out of jail free card here. By the way, we did a thorough investigation with her. She said there was never any harsh words from him. He had never been violent. He had always been very, very kind, always very, solicitous, trying to serve her and love her. She just didn't want anything to do with him physically, which is a problem in a marriage. Let's be honest. So she had thought she'd trapped him. She said, I asked him if he'd ever looked at another woman with lust in his heart, and he admitted he had. So he's committed adultery, and I can divorce him. No. I hate to break it to you, ladies. Every human male has looked at other women with lust in his heart. All of us. The same way that we've looked at people and said, you idiot, you fool, you're an animal. All of those inside thoughts. And like the bird flying over our heads, we have to cleanse that thought. It does not mean we have broken our vow and broken our marriage. Jesus is saying it is starting in here. You've got to fight it in here before it comes out into the world. It's a warning, not a get out of jail free card. And in fact, according to Paul, her refusal to have sexual relations with her husband throughout their marriage was adultery. It was a breaking of covenant that she had made. Now, guys, don't run to your wife with this and put it on a loop. You need to investigate very deeply what's going on in your marriage and in your life. And then, as Jesus just said, negotiate. Negotiate on the way. And God built that into our very bodies. And I'm not the first to say it. Men are microwaves, women are crock pots when it comes to sexuality. Why would God do this? Men have a sexual prime, which comes very early in their life. Women's sexual prime, far more elastic, normally doesn't kick in until their 40s. Why would God do this? Because we're to walk together, we are to negotiate with each other all the time. Not conflict, negotiation, to find a place to meet. Adultery means to break covenant. If I beat my wife, I have broken the covenant. If I desert my wife, I have broken the covenant. Is it irrevocably broken? Frankly, if a husband's beating you, I would say, yes, get out of there. I don't think it can be fixed. If it is otherwise, maybe. I've seen many people's marriages fall because of sexual sin, because of on the part of the woman or the man, that have later healed and become incredibly strong. So adultery doesn't necessarily mean the end of the marriage if both parties are willing to work on it. But adultery means breaking a covenant. We are going to emphasize this because it's important when we get to talk about marriage and divorce. Going ahead, how strict is Jesus about this? He's going to speak in metaphor here. Let me stress, this is metaphor and hyperbole, which means to outspeak or to overspeak. For example, my children are all grown up right now, but let's say one of my little kids was running around doing something, and I say, I've told you 1,000,000 times to stop that. We all know I've not said it 1,000,000 times. It may seem like that, but I've not said it. Do the math on how big 1,000,000 is and how long that takes to say. You've not done it. You can't say it 1,000,000 times during the lifespan of this child at this point. But we all understand it's hyperbole. All right? So he says this, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. There are people who have done these things. Literally. Don't be those people. Jesus is speaking in hyperbole. He's saying you got to fight it. By the way, which is harder? To work on your thoughts or to gouge out your eye? I'm going with eye gouging. And he goes further. If it's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Here he's speaking about a trash pit burning. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. And again, the trash pit / the grave, because they use these terms interchangeably. We did a 6-part series on hell. Go to our website, click on videos. there will be a search line. It is not the one at the top, because the one at the top will take you all over YouTube. It is down further on the page, and you can put hell, and you'll find 6 parts on a Monday morning messages about hell. So if you're worried about hell, look at that. But we also talk about all the weird words that are translated hell, most of which shouldn't be translated hell. And that is here too. Different subject, kinda, because somebody would have been asking questions, so now he answers it. It has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality, the word there is porneia, which means fornication, all and any forms of sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery. Now that is really important, people. Most Bible versions will say, makes her commit adultery. Now, when I was a boy, adultery was always sin between 2 people that were married, not to each other. And so the preachers, we'd ask, wait, if he puts away his wife and she didn't sin sexually, the Bible says it makes her commit adultery? How? And the preachers would say, I'm not saying this. The preachers would actually say, well, sooner or later, she's going to get involved with somebody. Like a woman has no power of choice, like a woman can't control herself. I mean, that was just absurd, misogynist, horrible. No, he makes her commit adultery because she is now the victim of adultery. She cannot keep her covenant she had made to him because he shoved her away. She made vows as well, and now she can't because he's forced her away. He does, divorce is allowable, and a certificate had to be given, but he's saying, don't just start writing these. By the way, in the Muslim world, to this very day, according to the Quran, not according to Patrick, the Quran, their holy book, to marry somebody, you can marry somebody like that, just saying, I marry you. And to divorce you, you say just 3 times, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, which is what the jihadists do when they rape people. They will first, or go to a prostitute, they will first say, I marry you, and then afterwards, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. And that way, they didn't commit adultery. You see, they didn't do fornication. It is such an evil thing to try to find your way around a moral law. And then to codify it and make it an okay thing among the men. This is a real problem. It is systemic, and I have no solution for it. But I want you to know it's a real thing. And Jesus is saying, do not treat women like that. Do not throw them away and say, I gave her a certificate of divorce. She's free and clear. No, because she made vows too. And now you've made her that victim of that. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. How? Well, because again, there were vows made, and now you've helped break vows. Now, if you're out there right now thinking, but I've been divorced 3 times and I'm remarried, he is not condemning you here, and neither are we. If you please wait with us, we're going to get to chapter 19, and we're going to get to other places where he talks about this in much greater depth, and that will help you a lot. But you can also go back to our website our YouTube site. Our YouTube is Our Safe Harbor Church. You have to add the church to it. The website is Our Safe Harbor. The YouTube channel is Our Safe Harbor Church. Then go down into that lower search bar and type in divorce. We did a long form, I think it was an hour and a half, Monday morning on marriage, divorce, and remarriage. And especially if you've been divorced and remarried, I think you will find that hugely comforting, life-giving, and affirming. So please go to that. If you have any trouble finding it, send us an email, info@oursafeharbor.com. We need to stop here, although he's going to keep talking about breaking oaths, because we don't want to open that up and then have to shut it down before we're able to really talk about it. So we'll end this here. We'll pick it up next week. Have a blessed week. Thank you for giving to us. Thank you for praying for us. And if you want us to come see you, send us an email and let us know. God bless you.